Welcome to another Gateways for Seniors program. Our topic today, how do you work and take care of an aging parent? Our guest is Sharon Stevens, Director of Gateways for Seniors in Nashua, New Hampshire. Hey Sharon, how are you?
Fine, how are you doing, Tim?
Great, thanks.
Good.
Here's our first question. What kind of conversations or calls do you typically get from working caregivers?
Well, by the time they get to me, they're usually pretty frustrated with working and trying to take care of someone at home. They've done the very best they can, but it's not always what the person wants that they're caregiving for and not only what the family wants. So by the time they get to me, it's really a call for help.
The end of the rope, right?
Absolutely.
Well, if you're the only person that's been caring for an aging parent, what are the first steps?
Actually, the very first phone call I got was a gentleman that had taken care of his mother, and it was about support stockings.
Really?
Yeah, I know it seems like such a little deal, but it was more than that. She was in the hospital, and he was trying to find her stockings. So he asked her, where were they? She didn't know. Well, who prescribed them to you? She didn't know. She just didn't know she's in the hospital and she needed those support stockings. He had no plan, didn't even think about taking care of her, didn't think about what would happen if she couldn't take care of herself. So he finally got the stockings, but it took him a whole day.
That's a great story.
It is a great story, and it made me think that it's not really good to have an emergency like that come up before you need to be prepared. Because if you're not prepared, it'll always be an emergency. A great book that's out there from AARP is Prepare to Care. So we'll talk a little bit about that later, and it's all about preparing.
So it sounds like it's critically important to understand your parents' financial status to begin care planning. How would you begin that conversation?
The financial part really is the easiest part. You really are switching roles when you're talking to your parents about finances because they're used to telling you, give you advice on how to buy a house, etc., etc. Now, all of a sudden, you're asking them about the intimate details of their financial life.
And that's awkward as a grown child.
As a grown child, it certainly is. But if you explain to them that it's just a way of getting their records in order, so if anything happens to them at all, that they'll be able, someone from the family, to pick up this book or however you have it organized folder, and then be able to help them at that point. The lady with the stockings, if she had a good plan, at least her son would have known what doctor to call about the stockings. But with no preparation, it's really not a good idea. And they could even use the stocking story to their parents to get the point across that there needs to be a plan.
Sure, because you don't want your parents to feel that you're asking these questions because you no longer think they're capable.
That's right. That's the worst thing, to think that they have lost control or that there's nothing that can be done, or they're in a situation where they can't remember. They may have dementia or Alzheimer's. At that point, they're not going to be much help.
Absolutely. Well, let's say that you've now organized your parents' finances and you've put together what you think is a pretty good care plan. How would you recommend talking to them, about using other services that, can help ease the caregiving burden? Because I'm sure that can be something that's equally difficult.
Well, again, the book that I was talking about is free, and it's on AARP's website, and it's Prepare to Care. It talks a little bit about prepare to talk, form your team, assess needs, make plans, and take action. So that's a good foundation for the talk. Then 99% of people want to age in place, and you can stretch your dollars by using personal care service workers and also be able to accommodate your parents' needs. So if their needs are, I want to go bowling once a week, that can be accomplished and the mother can be taken care of. So there's ways to use personal care services that will stretch your dollar before they go into a nursing home or assisted living. So when your parents feel that they have difficulty doing chores like laundry or shopping or gardening, housekeeping or meal preparation, you can have a personal care service provider do that, which would free up time for them to do other things.
And open up your life as well.
If that's what you're doing, it will certainly open up your life for sure. And if they're having trouble staying on top of their bills or remembering appointments or even remembering who the doctor is, with a book of information and a simple phone call, you can have a personal care service provider start learning the appointments when they go to the doctors with them, know what the next appointment is, stop by the drugstore, make sure they have the medication that they need, and make sure they understand how to take it. So there's many things that can be done.
You know, I had a conversation actually this morning with a lady who was very much in this position with her dad. And what I thought was interesting to me was she said, all these services sound great, but he's resisting everything I try to do. Now, you know, I would expect there's probably a good example. There's many conflicts, headbutting, and just plain, stubbornness that happens when you talk to parents about, finances and certainly about these kind of caregiving options. Any good advice for us?
Well, to start out with, we have many situations where the actual person that's being taken care of, they don't want an outsider to come in. So one thing that we do is we make sure that the personal care service provider shows up and they get to interview them and select them. And the care provider talks to them about what they want to do with their day and how they can help them fill in the gaps or how they can take them to places that they want to go. And that really eases the burden of someone just, you're going to have somebody, they're going to show up on Tuesday, and this is what's going to happen. It includes them in the process, which is a whole lot easier presentation.
Well, Sharon, those are all great ideas. Any final thoughts before we wrap up our program?
Yes, never take anything personally. You have to think about this very objectively. Make it a learning schoolroom situation where you're learning how to do things. So if your parent says something that could be hurtful, try not to let it hurt you.
You know, that's a great piece